It has been a year since my last top 50 list, so it's about time to release another. My coaster count has gone from 398 to 457 since then. Among those 49 new credits, 9 have made my top 50, which is above average, suggesting a possible recency bias on my part. In 2020, I finally visited Holiday World and most of Pennsylvania for the first time. I have only visited U.S. parks and Canada's Wonderland. Here are some notable parks that I have not yet visited. So here's the standard disclaimer. This list is my personal opinion based on my preferences and experiences. Please don't be offended. If we all had the same opinions, this would all be boring. You know the spiel. My preferences and experiences are a big factor for me. So coasters will get a boost if I'm with some great people or if I had a lot of fun riding it. In regards to preferences, I must repeat that I'm not as big of a B&M fan as most people are, but I don't dislike them. For my fellow statistics nerds, here's my breakdown of how many coasters by each manufacturer make my list. The parentheses are because clones will only take up one spot on my list. You can see that B&M is in third place, even though I've ridden more from them than RMC and Intamin combined. All RMCs make my list, while less than 14% of B&Ms made it. Gravity Group actually has the second strongest representation. And here's my breakdown by state, with Ohio leading the way, followed by Pennsylvania and California. 13 of my top 50 are wood coasters, which is a higher percentage representation than my grand total. And the breakdown by chain has Six Flags holding a narrow lead over Cedar Fair. I will have plenty of controversial placements and inclusions on this list, and that starts right off the bat. An honorable mention to my number 51 coaster, Candemonium at Hershey Park, the new for 2020 B&M Hyper, with plenty of great airtime moments and great visuals on that final helix around the Kisses Fountain. The controversial side is what I place barely above it at number 50, which is Lightning Racer, the GCI Racing Wooden Coaster, also at Hershey Park. This is all about the fun factor. I didn't even care about the weak forces because the racing, dueling, flybys, and crossovers made this one of the most fun coasters I have ever ridden, and it rides very smooth. It's the best racing coaster in the country that actually races. 49 is Orion at Kings Island, the new for 2020 B&M Giga Coaster. I think this project turned out better than expected, with 5 great airtime moments, which is just as much as Fury, and it has no dead spots on the entire ride. Every moment you're doing something interesting, which I appreciate. 48 is right down the midway at Kings Island. It is Banshee, the B&M invert. This is one of the best layouts for any invert, and it's very intense, all the way up until that inline twist at the end. And I love the vest restraints because it eliminates any chance of headbanging. If this didn't ride so rattly, it would rank higher. 47 is a surprise for me. It is Thunderhead, the GCI wooden coaster at Dollywood. This was riding amazing on my recent visit, far better than on my previous visit. The airtime was out of this world, and it felt so wild and out of control. It was a little rough, but not too much for me. 46 is the Beast at Kings Island, the in-house wooden coaster that has lots of trim brakes and no airtime. This is another one that is all about the fun factor of traveling deep into the woods, which is highlighted with the night rides. But I may be starting to come down to earth on this one. 45 is the RMC Raptor clones, Railblazer at California's Great America and Wonder Woman at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. What holds these down are the very short ride durations and the uncomfortable shoulder straps. What gets these so high on my list is the very strong airtime, intensity, and excellent pacing. 44 is Full Throttle, the premier launch coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain. It has a great launch leading into a huge loop with incredible hang time, giving a great upside-down view of the mountains. And there is a nice surprise later on, and I like that it is not a short ride. 43 is the defunct Vortex at Kings Island, the Aero Looper. I had the best time marathoning this with fellow Vortex enthusiasts before it closed down, and I realized how great the airtime was on the first drop when riding in the back, and you have the forceful loops, then hang time filled inversions. It remains my favorite ride at Kings Island. 42 is Fahrenheit at Hershey Park, another new entry this year. Made by Intamin, this has 2 amazing airtime moments, including that 97-degree drop, plus 6 great inversions mixed in. This is all about the fun factor, and it rides very smooth. 41 is Gold Striker, the GCI Woody at California's Great America. This is one of GCI's best layouts, with a mix of great airtime and laterals, and it has excellent pacing. It also rides a bit rough, but this is the GCI roughness that I feel makes the ride better. 40 is Phoenix at Knoebels, another new entry this year. It's considered by some to be the best wooden coaster in the world. While it didn't reach that level for me, it still highly impressed me. Despite its age, it rides butter smooth, and the airtime keeps getting better as the ride goes along. And since you have buzz bars and no seat belts, that makes the airtime so much better and crazier than it otherwise would be. 39 is Twisted Cyclone, the RMC hybrid at Six Flags Over Georgia. It's a very short ride, but it has a few excellent airtime moments, some good inversions, a nice wave turn, and it rides perfectly smooth, just like all the RMC hybrids. 38 is Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City, the Mach multi-launch spinning coaster. The more I ride this, the more I love it, and it rides different every time because of the spinning. It starts off with that vertical drop out of the station, then you have several inversions, plus a couple of gentle launches. It's not overly intense, so it has more universal appeal. 37 is Joker at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, the RMC hybrid. Despite the dumb name, it is so underrated. It's a long ride with several great airtime moments, plus excellent inversions, especially that zero-G stall. 36 is Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast, the premier launch coaster at both Six Flags Over Texas and St. Louis. It has a great backwards launch to 70 miles an hour, leading into an inverted top hat, and after the vertical spike, you get to do it all again forwards. It's extremely intense and so underrated. 35 is Poltergeist at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, another premier launch coaster. It's another underrated and intense ride, and this is by far the best of the Spaghetti Bowl coasters, with the faster launch, no mid-course, and being able to see all the head choppers throughout the structure. It does slow down in the middle, but it picks back up the speed and intensity as it builds to the finish, and it feels faster than it looks off-ride. 34 is Kumba, the B&M sit-down at Busch Gardens, Tampa. This is one of my favorite B&Ms because of how intense it is. The 7 inversions are all great, and it just tears through the course. It can have a couple rough spots in it, but I love these old-school intense B&Ms. Speaking of which, next up at number 33 is also at Busch Gardens, Tampa. It is Montu, the B&M invert. These two keep going back and forth for me. Montu is also very intense, has 7 inversions, it's smooth for a B&M, and not much headbanging. The Batwing double inversion is very intense, and I love how this ride keeps diving into and out of trenches. 32 is New Texas Giant, the RMC hybrid at Six Flags Over Texas. I may overrank it based on how much fun I've had on this, being able to ride it often, but despite some elements being missed opportunities for airtime, it still has several moments of strong ejector airtime plus some floater. It was the first RMC, so it could have been better if it was done later, but it is still great. 31 is Manta at SeaWorld Orlando, the B&M Flyer, and my second most ridden coaster ever. This has great theming in the queue, an intense pretzel loop without being too intense. The ride is sprawled out over the midways, over water, and flying by waterfalls. Every time I get on this, I feel like I'm back at home. It is a sentimental favorite for me. Number 30 will be very controversial. It is Fury 325, the B&M Giga at Carowinds. The reason this isn't higher is because I'm not that big of a fan of B&M, plus it rode extremely rattly the week I was there. The layout was a hit and miss for me, with some great moments and a few that missed the mark, at least for my taste. But if I didn't totally love Fury, it wouldn't even be in my top 50 at all, so I do love it. It has great speed, it keeps that speed throughout, and there are several good airtime moments, especially on that hive dive turnaround. Next up at 29 is my most ridden coaster of all. It is Mako, the B&M Hyper at SeaWorld Orlando. Yes, I do like Mako more than Fury, just barely. It's not as tall or fast, but it has always been smooth with only a hint of a rattle. And it has far more airtime moments in both quantity and quality. There are several moments of sustained airtime, including the awesome 5-second Camelback Hill. The more I ride it, the more I appreciate how great it is. 28 is King Ka, the Intamin Strata coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure. That 128-mile-an-hour launch is so exhilarating. Then you climb to 456 feet, the tallest coaster in the world. Then you plummet straight down. The rattle didn't bother me, even in the back. I'm never bothered by Intamin rattles, with one exception, which we'll get to in a couple minutes. But if this had better restraints, it would rank higher. 27 is Prowler, the GCI wooden coaster at Worlds of Fun. This is a former #1 of mine, and I have gotten to ride it plenty the last few years. It always feels so out of control, going deep into the woods with great floater and ejector airtime. It seems to me that this has the best airtime of any GCI, although you do have to let it warm up first. It rides a bit rough, but I think that adds to the experience. I don't know what I'm seeing here that most people are missing, but I'm glad that I see it. 26 is Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom, the Chance Hyper GTX. It may not be too tall or fast, and it has no inversions, but it still delivers such a great ride with strong airtime. This probably has the best universal appeal of any coaster on this list. I don't know why there aren't more of these. 25 is Superman Ride of Steel clones at both Six Flags America and Darien Lake. These Intamin Hypers have a confusing and simple layout, but you are also carrying a ton of speed throughout. And that airtime hill between the two helixes is one of the strongest airtime moments I have ever experienced. And it finishes up with several more strong airtime hills. 24 is Hades 360, the Gravity Group Woody at Mount Olympus. Despite having not ridden this last year, I still moved it up. My memories of it have gotten stronger as time has gone on. It has the best pre-lift section in the world, then the main drop dives under the parking lot into the longest underground tunnel in the world, which you go through twice. Plus you have an inversion, and there are plenty of great airtime moments, and it is such a wild and out-of-control ride. If it rode a bit smoother, it would probably be in my top 10. 23 is Goliath, the RMC Woody at Six Flags Great America. I may be starting to come down to earth on this one, but I still love it more than most people. The drop is great, the two inversions are among the best in the world, plus there are two crazy ejector airtime moments throughout the somewhat short ride, including the entry into the brake run. This ride is quality over quantity. 22 is Skyrush, the Intamin Hyper at Hershey Park. The reason this isn't higher isn't as much for the thigh-crushing restraints, which did hurt a little, but more because of the extreme rattle, the only Intamin rattle to ever bother me. If this rode smooth, it would certainly be higher, because the airtime is the most extreme and intense airtime I have ever experienced. It feels like it's trying to kill you. I think this is the most intense coaster I have ever ridden, as it is non-stop extreme action every single second. 21 is Millennium Force, the Intamin Giga Coaster at Cedar Point. This one might have dropped a little in my rankings, but because my 2020 rides weren't as strong as my 2018 rides, but it did make me gray out on the first turn, and the sense of speed that is sustained all the way to the end was still there, and the view from the lift hill is among the best in the world. But the airtime on all three hills weren't as good as they were before, but still, I have great memories of this from the past, and that holds it up in my rankings. 20 is just a few minutes down the midway. It is Gatekeeper, the B&M Wing Coaster at Cedar Point. Well, what can I say? I just love wing coasters. The sensation of no track above or below you makes up for this having very little airtime, at least it does for me. The inversions are all excellent, especially with those keyholes, and this is one of the few B&Ms that I would describe as smooth. It was my overall favorite B&M, but not anymore. Number 19 is my new favorite B&M, Thunderbird at Holiday World, another wing coaster, but this one starts with a powerful launch. It still has that graceful flying feeling of Gatekeeper, and it is smooth and has some great inversions plus a near-miss element, but Thunderbird steps up the intensity, which gives it the edge. 18 is Phantom's Revenge, the Morgan Hypercoaster at Kennywood. I was amazed at how glossy smooth this is. You get a great view across the river before the second drop plunges you 228 feet down into the river valley at 85 miles an hour, and after climbing back up out of the valley, that's when you hit the violent ejector airtime hills that don't even seem real, especially with those minimal restraints. 17 is Ravine Flyer 2, the Gravity Group Woody at Waldameer. I was surprised that this ended up being my favorite coaster in Pennsylvania. It rode mostly smooth with the perfect amount of bite to it. The view from the top of the lift hill might be my favorite of all time, looking out to Lake Erie. After dropping down and going over the road, you do lose speed as you rise back up the one hill, but that's by design to give you another outstanding view of the lake. I love how it dives down the ravine more than once, including later in the ride when you think it's about to end. The actual ending is weak, but there are plenty of great airtime moments, and I just had the best time marathoning this on my afternoon at this park. 16 is Monster, the Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster at Adventureland in Iowa. My re-rides on this in 2020 moved this much higher up my list. It is perfectly smooth, and I love the whole atmosphere that this park provides. Monster has a couple great airtime moments, including with that beyond vertical drop, plus several of the inversions and overbanks give some of the best hang time you will get on any coaster, which I totally love. The hang time is made even better because you experience it with only lap bars and no seatbelts. 15 is El Toro, the Intamin wooden coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure. This does have a couple rough spots, and the middle section doesn't really do anything, and the ending is weak. However, the drop, the following two Camelback Hills, and the Rolling Thunder Hill later in the ride provide some of the strongest sustained ejector airtime in the world. I don't think that those 4 moments are enough to overcome its weaknesses to get into my top 5, where almost everyone else will have it, but it's good enough to get this high for me. 14 is Twisted Colossus, the RMC hybrid at Six Flags Magic Mountain. On the rare occasion that this duels, that does make it much better, but even without the dueling, it is an excellent ride with strong ejector airtime, twisted airtime, 2 inversions, including a 0G stall, and you get to ride both sides without having to get off. 13 is Twisted Timbers, the RMC hybrid at King's Dominion. This has 20 airtime moments, including hang time, floater, ejector, off-axis airtime, plus 3 inversions. And it is a long ride thanks to light crowds the week that I was there. I got plenty of rides, and the ride-ops that were there that week were the absolute best that I have ever come across. 20 is Outlaw Run, the RMC Woody at Silver Dollar City. I think this is the best wooden layout and most complete wooden coaster in the country, maybe even the world. It features ejector, floater, and sideways airtime, inversions, hang time, plus it goes out into the woods, making for an awesome night ride. 11 is Maverick, the Intamin Blitz coaster at Cedar Point. This shot up my list after my 2020 rides. The layout is absolute genius with a great mix of ejector airtime, inversions, launches, speed, twisted airtime, and all the rapid-fire transitions. I'm not even bothered by the restraints anymore, which is also the case for the next coaster on my list. Number 10 is Maverick's big brother, Intimidator 305, the Intamin Giga Coaster at King's Dominion. I don't gray out on that first turn, but many people do. It carries great speed throughout. This is one of the most intense rides I've ever ridden, and I am a sucker for this type of intensity. It has plenty of rapid transitions, mixing in with some great airtime moments, and the night rides take that intensity to the next level. Number 9 is Wicked Cyclone, the RMC hybrid at Six Flags New England. This long ride has great variety throughout the layout with a forceful turn at the beginning that actually does make me gray out, plus plenty of ejector, floater, and off-axis airtime, as well as hang time in the inversions. Even when it's losing the speed towards the end, it still manages to give strong airtime on the final few hills. Number 8 is Top Thrill Dragster, the Intamin Strata Coaster at Cedar Point. As I marathoned this on my 2020 visit, I thought that this could actually be my new overall number 1. It is that exhilarating. A 120-mile-an-hour launch, straight up 420 feet, offering the best view on any coaster in the world, then straight back down. It's the only coaster that still scares me and still leaves me in awe after each ride. Number 7 is Superman the Ride, the Intamin Hyper at Six Flags New England. One of the best and most complete layouts in the world that doesn't feature an inversion. It has a beautiful setting along the river, great floater and ejector airtime, and the brilliant spaghetti bowl section towards the end has a mix of forceful helixes, a tunnel, and surprising airtime moments. It is very smooth, and even though some people don't like the restraints, I have no problem with them at all. Number 6 is the final new entry on my list, Voyage, the Gravity Group wooden coaster at Holiday World. It has such an amazing layout where you are unknowingly climbing up a hillside with the Camelback Hills, then you have the Spaghetti Bowl section, then you start falling back down the hill on the return trip, which feels so wild and out of control, especially if you can get a trimless night ride. With all the twists and turns and countless airtime hills, I can see how this can be some people's overall favorite. It also may be the longest thrill coaster in the world in terms of non-stop action. Number 5 is Lightning Rod at Dollywood, the RMC. This launches you up the hill, then you drop onto the other side of the mountain, which makes for complete darkness if you can get a night ride. Over there, you will experience sideways and twisted airtime before making your way back towards the park as you go down, careening down the hillside with the quad down, giving great ejector airtime the whole way. The restraints do come down tighter as you go along, which I hope that they get fixed. Number 4 is Iron Rattler, the RMC hybrid at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. These restraints do not come down tighter, which is why this is higher than Lightning Rod. Iron Rattler has one of the best drops in the world, one of my favorite inversions, and that epic dive off of and into the quarry wall. And all the elements between the world-class elements are also very good. Even the section on top of the quarry wall is great, offering ejector airtime and sideways hang time. Number 3 is Steel Vengeance, the RMC hybrid at Cedar Point. These restraints come down a little tighter, but this is also the ride with the most airtime in the world. It has floater, ejector, off-axis airtime, 4 inversions, and I love all the time that you spend inside the structure. And it's an extremely long ride. One thing that can sour it is that in 2020, it was a mandatory upcharge attraction, requiring you to purchase a locker to ride. It's not much money, but it is the principle of the issue. Number 2 is Storm Chaser, the RMC hybrid at Kentucky Kingdom. Now, I am not saying that this is a better ride than Steel Vengeance. I'm saying that I like Storm Chaser more. It's nowhere near as tall, fast, or long, but the airtime is much stronger, and you are not required to purchase a locker. Plus, Kentucky Kingdom and Storm Chaser just know how to give off the best atmosphere, creating for such a fun time. Also, these restraints do not come down tighter as you go along, allowing you to really feel that powerful airtime. And it is such a quirky ride with interesting and unique elements. Although my numbers 2 through 6 are all very close, my number 1 coaster stands out head and shoulders above everything. It is X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain, the Aero 4D wing coaster. It is such an intense and exhilarating ride with a crazy first drop taken face first, thanks to the controlled flipping, which will be a factor throughout the ride. At different points, you'll be facing forward or backwards on your back or belly, or on the right side or left side of the track. There's nothing else like it on this side of the planet, and I hope to someday ride the SNS versions on the other side of the planet. So, one final chart of what parks are represented and how many came from each park. So, that is my top 50. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. I'm sure you won't agree, and that's totally fine. That's why these lists are so interesting. And I would love to see what your favorites are. So, thank you for watching. I will see you next time.